Okay, it's great to be with you tonight. You have a fabulous team building your entrepreneurship program here at Weber State. You've got Alan Hall, who's an icon in the field of entrepreneurship, who I know well, is a fabulous guy. You have Alex Lawrence, who's running he's the Vice Provost for Innovation and Economic Development. And now you have David Nowak, Professor Nowak, who I've known for a long time, as he mentioned. So I'm very impressed with what you're doing, and it's an honor to be here to speak with you tonight. Let's first find out who we have here. Tell me if you are planning on building your own business at some point in your career. Okay, raise your hand. Okay, so every single person in here, just about, right? How many of you are working on it seriously right now, that you're ready to maybe launch something, or you've already launched something? Okay, about half of you. And how many of you own a business right now? Fabulous. That's producing revenue, right? All right, so how many of you then also have a big dream of something really cool you'd like to do in your life? Maybe you want to hike the Inca Trail or do a full triathlon, or raise your hand if you have a dream like that. Okay, so every hand again. All right. I think we're going to have a great discussion then tonight, because what I hope you leave here with is conviction that you can build your own business and be successful. There's no question in my mind. I've worked with hundreds of startup companies, and I know that you can do it if you really want to do it. So we're going to talk about how you make that happen. And I also know you can achieve big dreams in life if you think about them, you plan for them, and you make time for them. You can make them happen. Okay? So for me, when I was your age, for some reason, I loved the idea of building organizations. Weird, right? I thought it'd be so cool to figure out how do you put people together with common objectives that are passionate, and how do you create a great environment for people to work in so they say, that's the best place I've ever worked. You know, that intrigued me when I was your age. So I went on straight through school. I got a PhD when I was a young kid, basically. I was 27 years old. And I started teaching at the University of North Carolina. And I was real excited because I just received my doctorate, like Professor Nowak has here. And I walked into my first classroom, and I had a little bit of bravado, and I put my name on the board, Dr. Glauser, and I turned around, and it was panic, because everyone in that room was 10 years older than me or more. It was an executive MBA program, and I knew a lot about organizational theory, but they knew a lot about organizations. And so I thought, okay, this has been fun to get this degree and teach, but if I really want to be serious about entrepreneurship, I've got to go do the real thing. So I have to practice what I've been preaching. I got to see if I can do it. So for me, it was a challenge. It's kind of a test. So I left the university and started building some companies. And we had some success with several of those. And so one day I was sitting in my office, and I got a phone call, and it was the CEO of a publicly traded company from Toronto. They were trading on the Toronto Stock Exchange. And he said to me, he said, Mike, we've been studying your business, and I want to buy it. And I said, well, I'm flattered, but the business is not for sale. And what did he say? He said, every business is for sale for the right terms and the right conditions. Can I come visit you? So he and his executive team flew down from Toronto to Salt Lake City. They spent 2 days in our office, and they came back the end of the second day, and they handed me an offer sheet, and they said, we want to buy it. Here are the terms. And I looked at the price, and I just knew that, you know, I wasn't going to sell it for that price. And I said, you know, I won't accept the price. Our board will never accept the price. It's worth a lot more than that. So he said, okay, write at the bottom of that page how much you would take for your company. So I wrote down a big number. It was already big, but I wrote a bigger number down. And he looked at it, and his eyes got really wide, and he said, wow. He said, I'll get back to you tomorrow. So he came back the next day, and he said, okay, we'll pay you that much for your company. But there's 2 conditions. And I thought, you know, here come the deal killers, because we weren't selling our company. I wasn't going to compromise and do anything that I didn't feel was appropriate for that company that we'd built. So he said, okay, number 1, we have our own team in Dallas. We're going to move the office down there. We have a great executive staff. We don't need you or your executive team. I said, great, because none of us really wanted to work for a company that we no longer owned. So he said, that was easy. And then he said, here's the second condition, number 2. He says, and this is the deal killer. You have to accept this one or the deal's off. And I said, okay, let's hear it. He said, he looked at me very seriously, and he leaned across the desk, and he said, you have to take cash. Okay? So I held a serious look as long as I could, for 10 seconds and said, okay, we have a deal. So they paid cash for our company, and a month later I was gone, and they moved the company down to Dallas, Texas. So now I'm at a point in my career where I taught entrepreneurship, business building, and I've actually built some companies, and I thought it's time now to go back to education and start teaching. However, when I went back to the university at the time, this was a while back, they weren't teaching anything that resembled what I had just done. So I just built some businesses, and the curriculum didn't match what I had done in reality. So I said there's a real need for us to go out into the world, find real entrepreneurs, collect their stories, collect their histories, analyze those stories, and figure out a process from A to Z of how you build a company based on the field as opposed to more of the academic research. And so that's basically what I've been doing for almost 20 years now, is I've been collecting stories of successful entrepreneurs, and we've built a company around this quest. And so we do training programs, we do university courses, we do books, we do articles, we do podcasts, we do a number of things around how do you start and build your own business. Okay? So about a year ago, every year we go out and we try to find 100 entrepreneurs to interview. And so about a year ago, I was very disturbed by some of the research that is going to affect every one of you here. It's kind of bad news, but in a way it's positive. It's good news because it creates a lot of opportunities for you as students right now. So here's the bad news, is that technology is displacing jobs in every single industry at an ever-increasing pace. So you take any industry. I've studied 21 different industries, and I've looked at the displacement of jobs, and entry-level jobs and middle-class jobs are going away due to technology. So we have computers, hardware, software, machines, robots that are taking over the jobs. Anything that can be automated is being automated. And so these are just some anecdotal examples you've seen. Robots now are building pretty much everything. I was just at a plant. They're building robots for Tesla Motors, and these were amazing robots. And I said, how many employees does each robot displace? And they said 20. And then they said, oh yeah, that's kind of bad, isn't it? Okay. So you have robots, you have self-checkout, you have e-commerce. Just look at the transportation industry. As soon as we have smart cars are now being used on private property, corporate properties all over the world. And they're very, very effective, and they're efficient, and they're very safe. And as soon as we all start using smart cars and ride sharing, think what's going to happen to the auto industry. And what about the $200 billion insurance industry? If the number of accidents goes down dramatically. So we're seeing a revolution, and basically the revolution is what science fiction writers have warned us about, is that we're going to create machines that will replace us. So here's the actual data. In the last 5 years, corporate revenue has increased by 20% without adding jobs. So it's the first time in the history of this country where the economy's going like this, and jobs are going down. So in the past, we've had the economy goes up, jobs go up. Now they're crossing over, and we're seeing, revenue's gone from $370,000 per employee in America to $425,000 per employee just in the last 5 years. A study done at Oxford, they looked at 702 occupations worldwide. They're predicting that in the next 10 years, half of those will be gone. So the jobs as we know them today won't be here. 4 out of 5 of us in your age group starting your careers will be out of work for a year or more 4 to 5 times during your career. So a year plus of unemployment 5 times. And basically the reality is jobs are going to be short-term, they're going to be part-time, they're going to be outsourced, they're going to be contract work. And how does that make you feel? You're not smiling. Scared? I don't believe it. I can do something else for a living. Okay, so here's the good news is I am more convinced than ever that every single person in this room can build a business. And the question of the future is not how do I go find a job, it is how do I create my own job? How am I going to create my own job? So here's what we did last year. This was really one of the funnest projects that I've done. We thought, let's go across America and let's find entrepreneurs that have moved to these really fun, attractive, smaller cities that have built businesses and created jobs for themselves. So they've said, I want a different kind of lifestyle. I want to get out of the pollution. I want to get out of the smog. I want to get out of the high crime rates and the accidents. And I want to go somewhere really cool but there are no jobs there, so I got to do something. And we found a bunch of those people that have done that successfully. So they've created jobs for themselves in places where there are no jobs, and are starting to hire 50, 60, 100 or more employees. And we thought, okay, if you're going to study these businesses all across America, these Main Street businesses, you don't fly in a jet. You don't ride in a limousine. You don't go to corporate offices and hear pitches from MBAs. You got to go visit all these companies personally. You got to meet the entrepreneurs. You got to see their plants, their factories, their offices. You got to see their cities and their post offices and meet the mayor. And so our conclusion was a very simple one. Let's ride our bicycles across America. You see the logic, how that fits together? So let me show this video. Do I need to activate it from here?
So we started this morning just north of Florence, Oregon.
Florence was such a cool city to start this tour off in. Before we even left, we stopped and interviewed Sam Spade at Aaron Legends.
Met with Dave and Lynn at Central Coast Disposal. They have built a phenomenal waste management company that really competes with the big boys there.
This is quite possibly the most gorgeous thing that I've ever done.
We're going to go right up over McKenzie Pass into Sisters. This morning we met with Energy Solutions.
Benny and Julie Benson are amazing entrepreneurs. They do all the engineering and design for biomass power plants.
We then went over to Sisters Coffee Company.
They have 40 employees, several retail locations, and they wholesale their coffee around the country.
We're in Mitchell, Oregon.
We're on around town, but we stopped by Juniper Twists.
We have room in the motorhome for one of these.
We officially made it to Idaho.
Today we're at the ranch of Will and Gail Williams. They're the founders of Idaho Sewing for Sports.
We made it.
We're in Montana. We just went out and met with Gary with Heritage Timber.
We are here at a Heritage Timber job site. We send out teams to these buildings and just completely dismantle them.
I'm sure Montana is very beautiful, but we had rain, hail several times, and snow. It's very difficult to stay on the road.
It looked miserable.
I could have smoked both of you to the top of this hill, but I know how fragile your egos are.
You can't really beat this, can you?
No way we could have done this without the support team.
You guys good?
No!
I guess they're okay.
Yes! Man, that is focus!
State number 4, Wyoming. We said, well, let's go into Jackson and meet some really cool entrepreneurs.
And we met with Jackson Hole Buffalo Company and with Steo Brands. We're in Du Bois, Wyoming, and I'm wearing a yak.
I'm Joe Brandel. Welcome to Outstroke Western Designs and Tannery in Du Bois, Wyoming.
Hey, does anyone know where I can get some books around here?
We have more walk-in customers here than I ever had in Denver.
Welcome to state number 5, Colorado!
My name is Dr. Ellen Lim, one of the founders here at Scratch Lab.
Hey, my new enterprise.
We also wanted to drop by Boa Technology.
Welcome to our new offices.
Order 39. When we first met Jim Pittenger 4 years ago, he had a couple of street carts in downtown Denver, and he has since opened up this beautiful restaurant.
I'm Sheila Kemper-Dietrich, and I'm founder and CEO of La Liga.
We've partnered up with a group called the Wednesday Morning Velo. Business builders and entrepreneurs all come together on Wednesday mornings during the warm season to do a bike ride together.
760386.
We are now here at KGNU in Boulder, Colorado to do a radio interview. Justin Gold and Nicole DeBoom are both going to join us.
The team of young entrepreneurs is embarking on a cross-country bicycle trip to meet, interview, and film more than 100 people in 100 cities.
Climbed up to 9,300 feet to visit Sundance Sheepskin and Leather.
My husband and I started back in 71, I believe it was.
I enjoy making things. I enjoy making things for people.
Good morning, Kansas! We rode right into Kansas and got right down to business.
I started in my basement. No idea it would take off like this.
My name is Vicki Stobie. I decided I'm not going back to work. I'm doing something on my own.
We've been hearing about the Newton Bike Shop for the last 3 states we've been traveling through.
Welcome to the great state of Missouri.
Hey everybody.
Welcome to the JSS. I mean, I'm happy, and I feel like the American dream at the end of the day is happiness.
I'm Randy Hammond. My wife and I own Wine Garden Vineyard, stood in the town of St. Genevieve, Missouri.
State number 8, Illinois!
Woo! Welcome to Spinach Can Collectibles, me store in my own hometown.
We are here today at the Kentucky Gun Company.
We can come in and buy guns and anything associated with guns.
We swung by Goose Hill Downs Bed and Breakfast.
Hey guys, welcome to Goose Hill Downs.
Can't go through Kentucky without riding a horse. We are at DeLima Stables. Meet with Mary DeLima and her daughter Emma. I don't know how you can argue with my form. I looked really good, really natural. I mean, let's talk about your jump.
So much air on a horse.
Sweet jump.
We are about to start the climb of the steepest mountain of the entire trip.
So Sean and I have just ridden our bikes from Whiteville, Virginia to Radford, Virginia, and we stopped here at McAdoo's and we interviewed the owner, Richard Mocker. He's got about 20 of these stores and they're mostly in small towns. We are very excited to have 3 friends join us on this tour. I want to be an entrepreneur. This is our 47th day of riding and it seems like this is all we know. 4,000 miles? You guys are amazing.
My name is Tara Miller, and I am the founder and the owner of Farm to You here in Lexington, Virginia.
My name is Amy Gardner and I'm a small business owner in Charlottesville, Virginia. I have a boutique that I've had for 20 years.
This is probably one of the greatest experiences of my lifetime.
The whole research aspect of this trip exceeded my expectations.
100 cities, 100 entrepreneurs, several thousand miles. See you later.
Okay, what do you think? Does that look fun? Does anyone want to do that? No? I see a lot of no's. Okay, so that was one of the dreams I had. I wanted to ride my bike across America. I love America. I love biking, and I wanted to ride across America while I could still do it. And I was able to merge that dream with this research project, and it was really kind of a gimmick, you know, the idea of riding bicycles. We kind of put these two things together, and what we found out was that the public was so interested in what we were doing. When we left, Inc. magazine wrote an article and said about me. It said, "This sweaty professor wants to interview you about your company," and then it just blew up from there. We were on CNN Money, we've been in Forbes, we've been in Entrepreneur magazine, Fast Company. You know, all the media wanted to know, why are you doing this on your bicycles? Which is kind of the unique hook. It's anti-normal, okay? And I think building a business, you got to be anti-normal. You got to do strange things or different things to get the publicity that you need. And so the media thought this was one of the coolest things, and it's led to many, many opportunities, including a book and a documentary film and a lot of things. But let me talk real briefly. I want to reserve a lot of time for questions and answers. What we tend to teach in business schools and business research centers and government, you know, business development offices, we tend to teach this model I call the Silicon Valley model, which says you got to build a prototype that you can test really quickly, and preferably in the technology space. Then you got to go out and get some users. You got to raise a lot of venture capital. You got to expand significantly and produce a 10x return to your investors. So that's kind of what we've been teaching. I'm a member of the global consortium for centers of entrepreneurship, and this is what we've been teaching for the last 5 years. What percentage of entrepreneurs actually are able to do this? Would you guess?
Less than 1%.
Okay, it's less than 1% build a technology company that scales, that gets venture funding. And of those companies, only about 1 in 10 ever go public. In fact, the number of public companies is shrinking. It's gone from 7,000 to 5,000 to 3,700 public companies. So to tell students, if we say this is what you got to do, we're going to help you do it, you have a 2 times greater chance of playing in the NFL than doing this. Okay? So why are we teaching this? You know? So we thought, okay, what did we learn from our trip? And we are now promoting what we call the Main Street model. And this is what I believe all of you can do. You can't all start eBay, Google, or Facebook, but everyone in this room can do this. So what these people would do is they go find a community they love where they want to live. They go find a need in that community and say, what does this community need and what can I do based on what I've done in the past? What do I know and what am I good at? Then they start interacting very closely with customers to create their first products and to adjust their products and to add new products to their business. They use a host of resources. The vast majority of small businesses don't get any funding. They bootstrap their companies. And because they love what they're doing, they don't have an exit strategy. One of the guy we interviewed, Dr. Alan Lim, who started Scratch Labs, he said, everyone asks me what my exit strategy is, and he said, it's to die someday. Okay? So you're building something you love, you know. The idea of build something fast, scale up, sell it, make a lot of money, okay, that's just not reality. This is reality. You can do this. So think about this. Over 100 years ago, there were no large corporations. We didn't have mechanization. Okay? We didn't have microchips. Everybody lived in a community, and everybody found something to do to make a contribution to that community. And I think we're going right back to where we were over 100 years ago, where people are starting to prefer small businesses rather than really large corporations. They like smaller towns, more rural environments, safer environments, and there's a need for businesses to meet needs in these communities. So we've now analyzed this data. We filmed these entrepreneurs. We have hundreds of hours of film and audio. And these are the 9 practices that we saw in common across all of these companies. Very simple, very basic. They're things that all of you can do. So I'm going to talk briefly about these 9 concepts, and then I want to answer questions the rest of the time. Okay, I'll spend a little more time on some than others. The first thing that was really shocking to me is that when we asked people, why are you doing this? Out of 100 people, what percentage of those said, because I need to make money, I want to make money?
Very few.
0. Not a single person mentioned that as a driving force. When we'd say, why are you doing this? They would give us an answer just like that, and it's, I want to create jobs in this town. I want to solve this problem better than anyone else is solving it. I want to give better service than I've been getting in this industry. I want to give back to this community. I want to create some revenue and solve some problems in the schools in this community. They were driven by something that was bigger than themselves and that was much bigger than money. And if you're doing a business for money only, you will burn out and quit long before you get there, because it takes longer, it costs more, it earns less, it's harder than you think. You need to hang in there for 3 to 5 years, and if you don't have a strong sense of purpose, who are you? Why are you doing this? What is the value of this? If you don't have that, you're not going to make it. But if you have that, you're going to have a drive, an engaging power that will take you places that you could never go otherwise. And I like the book Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Any of you read that book? It's one of the top 10 books written of all time. It's millions and millions of copies. He was a psychiatrist in Vienna, Austria, and he had written a book about this new form of therapy he called Logotherapy. And he had the manuscript in his overcoat, and he was on his way to his publisher, and he was picked up by the Nazis and put in a concentration camp because he was Jewish. Being a psychiatrist in the camps, they destroyed his manuscript, they destroyed everything he had. And in the camps, he was trying to recreate in his mind that manuscript. He was trying to get through the camp so he could go back and publish that book. And being a psychiatrist, he started watching people in the camps. He started watching who's dying and who's living and why. And what he found out, it's pretty amazing. It's a short little book. You can read it in one night. But he found out it is not the biggest and the strongest physically who survive. It was people that had a purpose in their suffering. So it was people that had something to get out of there for. So if people said, I'm going to go find my wife and kids, and I'm going to be the best husband I've ever been, I'm going to focus on my family. Or I'm going to go and I'm going to start a school. Or I'm going to go get a graduate degree and do research. Or I'm going to go out and publicize what happened in these camps and let the world know that this cannot happen again. So if you had something like that, you lived. If you didn't, you died. Very simple. And he also discovered that most of the people died in January. So the biggest number of deaths in all the camps during World War II occurred in January. Why do you think that's the case? Why would most people die in January? Okay, it was really cold, for one thing. What else?
The New Year.
Okay. They were saying, we can't take this. If we're in here another year, we're going to die. And December would come and roll around, and January would start, and they would basically give up. But those that had a purpose to live for, a purpose for their life, continued to be successful, and they got through the camps. So the last phrase there, those who have a why to live for can bear almost any how, and businesses are hard. You that started them, they're hard, right? Take a lot of work. And Malcolm Gladwell in his book, The Outliers, he says it takes 10,000 hours to be successful at something. So 10,000 hours, if you're working full-time, is 3 to 4 years. And if you don't have some reason you're doing this that's more exciting than I got to make money, you'll bail out long before you're successful. So I'm just going to tell you one story about each of these principles. This is one of my very favorite female entrepreneurs. Nicole DeBoom swam for Yale University and then became a professional triathlete for 11 years. She was one of the top triathletes in the world. Here's a picture of her winning the Ironman Wisconsin. But she was out training one day and she ran by a building and she looked in the glass and she saw herself in these typical running clothes made by men, and she thought, I look like a boy. You know, this is just not attractive to me. I don't feel my femininity. There's got to be something better. And she searched the market and couldn't find any triathlete gear that she liked, so she created her own. And the year she created it, she won this race right here, and she's now sold 10 million of these running skirts. But her driving purpose is she wants to create fitness products. She wants to teach women about endurance fitness and give them products that they feel pretty and beautiful wearing. That's been her driving mission. So this first principle seems pretty simple, but this is what a power of purpose will do for you. It gets you through all the hard times because you believe in what you're doing. It creates a drive for excellence. So if you want to build something and sell it, and 3 years is your time window, you're not going to invest in the high quality of systems and products if you're trying to unload it than if you're going to hold it long term. It attracts like-minded team members, so you get people that are as passionate about what you're doing as you are, and there's nothing like a motivated team of entrepreneurs working together. And this is probably the most important one here. Simon Sinek has published a fabulous bestseller called Start With Why, and what he's shown in his research is that people today, they don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So they want to know, why are you in business? What is your driving purpose? Why should I buy products from you? Who are you contributing to? What good are you doing in the world? And if they feel like you have a strong purpose that they identify with, they quit shopping around and they choose you as that business that provides those products and services for them. So you don't have to play the marketing game any longer. You don't have to continually be manipulating the market, saying you need to buy our products because we have better features. You need to communicate your why to the world, build a community of fans that love you, and then the only shopping they do is within your product line. Do I want Model A or want Model B? So this, don't overestimate this first concept of finding purpose in your life and a purpose in your business that is engaging not only for you, but for everyone that's going to be part of your team, including your customers. The second one, this was fascinating. We have found this before, but about a third of the businesses we've met and interviewed, they launched in the exact industry the entrepreneur worked in. So I work in an industry, I see the problems, I talk to customers all day, I know the suppliers. Some of these entrepreneurs even took the problem to their executive team and they said, we don't want to do that. So they left and did it on their own. But they lived in the industry, they were very familiar with the very fabric of that industry. The next group, about a third of them worked in a related industry, so they still knew the market pretty well because they were working side by side with that industry. And then this one is the most fascinating one. I call them user entrepreneurs. About a third of them were serious users of the product. So Nicole DeBoom knew nothing about the apparel industry, but she knew that market better than anyone else because she used those products for years. She was trying them on. She knew what all the competitors made. She knew what she liked. She knew what she didn't like. She knew what all her team members wanted. And it's been fascinating. Kauffman Research Center did a study. 10% of all new businesses launched every year are launched by user entrepreneurs. But after 5 years, the success rate, 47% of the businesses that are still around are started by user entrepreneurs. Okay? So you don't have to work in an industry, but you really need to know that product. You need to know the competitors. You need to know what's available. You need to know what works and what doesn't work. You need to take it apart, put it back together. Okay? So, quick example, this gentleman, that's his real name, Sam Spade. Is that a cool name for a guy with a cool plane? He flew in the Air Force for years, then he flew for United Airlines. He retired and he thought, I want to still use my flying skills, and he started a sightseeing company using this World War II biplane along the coast of Oregon. So it's a related industry. He knows a lot about flying and planes, how to repair and maintain planes. This is a 1944 Stearman, and if you fly with him, you put on the old leather helmet and the goggles, and it's open cockpit, and you go flying up the coast, see the most beautiful scenery ever, and you fly back down. So he's doing this in his retirement. He's made that trip up and down the coast 300 times. But again, he worked in a related industry. This is another important one. The failure rate is so high in starting new ventures, 50%, because people launch ideas. They don't launch true opportunities. So an idea is something that you think would be kind of cool. Maybe you thought it up in the shower this morning. You thought up sitting on the couch watching the Super Bowl, and you're going to try to push that into some industry you don't understand at all. We have found that if these 5 things are present in your concept when you launch, your chance goes from 50-50 for survival to 80-20. 80% of the companies we launch that have these 5 factors in place survive 5 years. So the first one is you need some evidence that people really need that product. You need first-hand evidence from being in that industry, but people are saying, I wish I had this solution. I'd buy it if you create it. This is really a problem. I hate this. Why doesn't someone fix this? The second thing is you have to have knowledge and experience in that industry, again, either as an employee or as a user. Number 3, you have to cobble together a host of resources. And these are resources other than money. Most entrepreneurs don't have money, but they create something quick and start selling it and get into the marketplace. So you have to be able to get a product together with limited resources and start producing sales. The next one is extremely important. If you can sell the product before you make it, you got a home run. Okay, so you got to go find people. I just interviewed the fellow that started the software that allows you to do banking from home, online banking at home. He sold that product to the Bank of America before he built the software. They contracted him to build it. And then he just sold it for $200 million, his company. Okay? So he had a customer that bought it, and then he went and built it. So what platform today allows us to test products and see if people will buy them before we make them? Say it loud. Kickstarter. Indiegogo. You have all kinds of places where you can create a concept, you can pitch it to the world and see if people buy it. If they buy it, you got a business. The most critical thing about building a company is you got to get someone to buy stuff from you. And then the last one is just knowledge of the model, the numbers. What is your gross margin? After cost of goods, how much is left? After you pay all your expenses, is there 10 to 20% profit margin? There are some industries that are very attractive with high gross margins and high profit margins, and there's some that are very difficult, like the food, the grocery industry. The margins are teeny. And so I call this NERCM. Students come to me and say, I got this great idea, and I say, okay. They say, what should I do next? I say, NERCM. What that means is go prove there's a need, go find some customers, go get some resources, see if someone will buy this from you, look at the margins, and if those things are in place, you're in great shape. So you saw in the video this guy that started this garbage company. He worked for a garbage company for 9 years, and then a large corporation came in and bought the garbage companies in his city, and so now there's only one large public company running the garbage industry. And people were really angry. They didn't like the service, they didn't like the prices, and so they knew he had been successful, and they kept coming to him saying, why don't you start a garbage business? We'll give you our business on day one. Where do we sign? Another guy came to him and said, we'll lease the trucks to you. We'll provide all the financing for the trucks. He kept hearing this over and over and over again, so when he opened his business, he had customers and he was successful the first month. So that's a true business opportunity versus like a pipe dream. These entrepreneurs were phenomenal at building teams. They all did number 1 and number 3. They build a brain trust of mentors and advisors that know that industry, that are willing to help them, that were willing to meet with them and work for free, and meet with them for lunch, take their phone calls. Some of these entrepreneurs had dozens of these people they were calling. And then the last one, strategic partnerships. You figure out who you want to partner with so that you benefit each other's business. And then if they grew beyond a solo practice, they would build a core team. But they were master team builders. They knew what they were good at, what they were not good at, and they were not afraid to build heroes other than themselves, give ownership, give credit to other people for their successes. This is another one of my favorite guys. Have any of you eaten Justin's nut butter? Okay, some of you are shaking your heads. Justin's vegetarian, and to get his protein, he would grind up nuts in his blender at home. Almonds, cashews, peanuts, and make this incredible nut butter. And his roommates kept stealing it from